So what we are looking at is, as warlords in 16th century Japan, the players attempt to secure a position of dominance for their respective clans. The most successful daimyo at the end of the game will become Shogun. So big picture, what it is that we're trying to do is, well, you see the victory point track around the outside. Our goal is to be able to score victory points. Victory points are going to come in the form of a number of things. First off, it's going to be number of provinces that we control at the end of winter. The game is broken up into 2 years, four seasons, thank you. And in winter is simply a scoring round. And all we're going to be doing, we're going to be gaining points for controlling all these various regions out here. We're going to be building various types of buildings, castles, temples, and theaters. We're going to score for that, and we're also going to score for majorities within a region of a certain type of building, like so. And all of this is going to be done by pre-programmed actions, which are going to be based off of this row here. That's kind of high level what it is that we're going to be doing and battling via the cube tower, the infamous cube tower, all right? So what you guys are looking at here on the board, first off, you can see obviously we have the map out here, which is broken up into different regions, and within different regions, there are various provinces. Then we have the province cards, and the province cards look like so. Thank you, Andrew. So there is one card per region out here. Also, I should point out that we are playing on the moon side of the board. There are two sides. It basically has different areas for control. The map is the same, and there are some sea connections that are a little bit different. So we have province cards, which based on which provinces that we control, if you have the card, you control it. If you don't have the card, that means obviously you don't control it. Then every player well, I should say there are the 5 special cards, which are going to correlate to turn order as well. Then there are the 10 action cards down below here, which are going to dictate the order in which our pre-programmed actions are going to take place. And then there are the 10 event cards, and the event cards are going to be special events that happen during the various seasons. We're going to put out 1 per season, so a total of 8, since there are 8 seasons in the game. Then over here on our player boards, there's a number of things that you guys can see here. Everybody starts the game with their own player board, and these are symmetric player boards, so they're all the same. We have the different actions that are available. There are a total actually of 11 action spaces on their board. We'll talk more about that a little bit. Everybody has 5 war chest cards, and the war chest cards have a value ranging from 0 up to 4, because the war chests are the cash or the money, the currency in the game. We have 5s and singles, so it's going to be a total of 18 war chests or 18 cash for people to be able to spend for various actions out here. We have their daimyo card right here at the top, and everybody's armies or player cubes, and everyone's going to start with 7 of those in the battle tower, in the cube tower. So that's all the components for the most part, and I showed you guys that there are theaters, there are temples, and there are castles. The other things that you guys need to be aware of are revolt tokens, because the farmers get really, really tired of being taken advantage of, and eventually they revolt. So the farmers are the green cubes in this game. So that's what all we're looking at as far as component-wise. Now let's go ahead and go over how you actually play the game. Now we're going to start the game with the draft. I'm not going to bother going over that right now. However, let's go ahead and talk about how the game actually works. So, as I said, people are saying the mic isn't working. Try that again, a moment. All right, we'll see if that's a little bit better. That looks better. Sorry about that, guys. All right, the game is broken out over 2 years. So the years start with spring, end in winter, and in winter, winter is just a scoring round. So there's actually 6 action rounds in the game. Spring, summer, fall scoring, spring, summer, fall scoring, and that's the end of the game. The game, each round is broken up into 6 different phases or steps. The first one is lay out the action cards. So 5 of them are going to be, all 10 are going to be shuffled up. 5 will be face up, 5 will be face down. We will, as we complete the first one, we will turn up the 6th one. Complete the second one, we turn up the 7th one, so on and so forth. So there's always going to be 5 visible there. Then we're going to lay out the special cards. Those 5 cards up here are going to be shuffled up, and those are going to determine turn order as we go along. The third one is we're going to plan our individual actions and then bid for turn order. That is, we're going to be placing our province cards and our war chest cards onto these at 11 action spaces out here. We're going to be doing so only knowing 5 of the available we know all 10 actions, but we don't know the order of the second 5. Then we're going to determine the events, and the event cards, we're going to have 4 of those face up, and then we're going to shuffle up those 4. We're going to turn one of them face up here, and that event is going to be universal across the board for everybody. Then after that, we're going to determine turn order. How that's going to work is whatever bid card is going to be here, the highest bid gets first choice, and they're going to replace whatever card it is with, say, their daimyo card, and that's now going to be the turn order for the round. So you'll notice we're playing a 4-player game, so only 4 of the 5 spots will be taken, but all 5 have options. So to give you an idea on how that's going to work, and then we're going to carry out actions in this order, in turn order. I also want to point out, because this game can run a little bit long, what we are going to do is 7 of the 10 actions we're actually going to happen simultaneously. The only 3 that are not going to be simultaneous are going to be these 3, because these are the 3 in which really you're affecting other players. Everything else is kind of within your own house. There can be revolts that happen here, which we'll get into in a little bit, and if so, those will be resolved in turn order. Otherwise, just these 3 will happen in turn order. Everything else will be simultaneous. So now let's go ahead and go through in a little bit more detail all those steps. Lay out the action cards. Shuffle these up, 5 face up, 5 face down, easy enough. The special cards, shuffle those up and put them out there, and wherever they end up, they end up. Then planning the individual actions. Well, this is how this is going to go. So every player is going to have a hand of cards out here, of province cards in which they control. They control it if they have cubes in that province. Very simple. So they're going to be taking their hand of these cards, which have the same back as their war chest cards, and they're going to bring them into their hand, and they're going to start putting these out face down onto various actions out here on the board, as you can see, like such. And then when we get to a certain action, so for instance, if this is the first action on the board, we're going to flip these up, and these are going to take place. So Saruga, in this case, I then can do what the action is that it says here. And this will happen, like I said, simultaneous or in player order if somebody says, no, I'd rather it go in player order for this turn or something along those lines. But every player will activate their action. The important things to know about this are, if you can, you must, is the answer. If you can, i.e. you can spend 2 war chests to then be able to put out 3 armies in Saruga, if you can, you must. If you only had 2 armies, or you had less than $2 or 2 money, 2 war chests, you cannot take the action at all. It's either all or nothing, and if you can, you must. So that's how we're going to be programming our actions, okay? So now would be a good time to go ahead and keep going on this, and then we will double back on the actual actions when we carry them out. The next thing is we're going to determine the event. Now, the event, some are good, some are bad, like so. So there are going to be 4 events. we're going to show them before the year starts. So maybe this is the first year's events. So what's going to happen is the top part matters for the first 3 seasons and the bottom part matters for the 4th season. But just because they're laid out this way doesn't mean they come out this way. So what's going to happen is we're going to shuffle these up. We're going to put one of them out as the main event. And this says that whatever place you confiscate rice at, no matter what it says, it's a minimum of 4 rice. Good. That will be the 1st season. The 2nd season, 3rd season, we'll be doing the top part. Whatever one is left for the 4th season, we're all going to lose 2 rice in the winter, which is going to negatively affect all of us as we go. Okay? So that's kind of how the events are going to work there. Then we're going to determine turn order. Well, let's go ahead and stay on this board for a minute. This space here is going to be a bid for turn order. Everyone starts with 18 war chests, and the players can bid one of 6 cards. They can bid any of these 5 war chest cards, or they also can bid a region or a province card. What they bid is how much they're going to spend. The higher the bid, the higher you go in turn order as far as determining where you want to be in turn order and what special ability you're going to get. However, there is a hierarchy of this, so obviously spending more cash is more beneficial. However, if you choose, you may bid a province card. If you do so, you are not sacrificing the province, you are simply saying, I am spending no money, just like this card. However, these activate before these. So the hierarchy is going from right to left. In this case, highest bid, second highest bid, so on and so forth. The disadvantage of using a province card is the fact that everybody knows that if I bid with this, they know that in Suruga, I am not taking any actions this round because I've used it as my bidding card instead, because each province only has 1 card. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So we're going to bid whatever amount that we wish, and obviously you cannot bid more than you have. And in that case, if let's say I bid 3 and I happen to have the highest bid, as I showed earlier, I'm going to place my daimyo card and take one of those 5 cards. Let's go ahead and run through what those 5 cards are. That says if you, in the move A or B, and or B action, if you choose to attack, you get to throw 1 extra cube into the cube tower. Easy enough. That one is whenever you confiscate rice, you confiscate 1 more than what the card actually says. All right. The third one is whenever you pay to get armies, you pay 3 war chests normally to get 5 armies. In this case, you're actually adding 6 armies. This one is the exact opposite of this one in that it's whenever you're defending, but it's only in one. You get to put 1 extra cube into the tower. And lastly, whenever you tax a province, you're going to get 1 extra war chest. And those will be, it could be that this one ends up here next round, etc., etc. So we're going to scramble those up, then we're going to bid on them. And then finally, carry out actions. So let's go ahead and go back over how all this works and what the available actions are. So we'll start out with the really simple ones. We'll start out with these 2 up here at the top. That if I place Suruga up here in this area, obviously it'll be face down, and whenever we get to evaluate or confiscate rice, whenever we get to that action, then everyone in turn order, although we're doing it simultaneous, will flip this over. And you'll notice that there are 3 symbols on this card. The top one says whenever you tax, you're going to get that amount of money. So 7 if it were here. Alas, it is not. Here it would be I get 3 rice. So now the rice out here, we have a rice track. So I would bump up to 3. This is going to reset at the end of every winter because you need to pay upkeep for each of your provinces that you have. So 3 this round, maybe in summer I get another 4. And then let's say I get another 3 in autumn. Well, that says at the end of autumn, or come winter time, when I have to pay 1 rice for each region, I have 10. Hopefully I don't have more than that number of regions, or else that chart that is right next to where Greg is going to come into effect for revolts. Okay? So getting rice, very simple. You just increase your value there. If you have the +1 rice, you would get 1 more. Or if the event says minimum 4 rice, I would actually get 4 rice. The event always takes place first, then the special cards affect those from that point forward. So that's getting rice. If the Saruga card was over here in tax, in that case, I would then get that amount of money. In addition, when these actions are complete, so we're talking about Saruga, and you'll notice that it has a location for those of us that are not familiar with the landscape of Japan. So if I were here in Saruga, if I tax or if I confiscate rice, and there are no revolt markers, that really pisses off the farmers. They start to have a little rebellion token put on there, a revolt token, okay? So if there is no token out there, okay, you just kind of upset them a little bit. But now on subsequent rounds, if I try and confiscate rice or I tax them again, now they're really upset. Now they said, okay, enough's enough. I'm tired of being taken advantage of. So you're going to get either the rice or the money, whichever it is first. You get what you came for. However, now they're upset. So one farmer for each of these tokens out here, along with all of my armies, along with anything that is here in the tray, are going to get dumped in there, and whatever comes out, comes out. So now's a good time to go ahead and talk about battling, okay? So battling is very simple. Just like what I just described here, it's whatever comes out of higher of the battling factions. So in other words, let's move these out since these are what seeds the game at the beginning of the game. If we throw these out, some of these are going to get trapped in there like happened. Okay, one of the yellow got trapped in there. So what came out? We had 1 green and 2 yellow. Which has more? Yellow. That means yellow wins. So whatever is the loser, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, so those will be removed. So these go back into the player's supply, and whatever is surviving goes back out there. And that is pretty much as simple as what battles work. If it had been a tie, if for instance it had been that, in that case, then the revolt is successful. What would happen in this case is everything would come off the board. Obviously, there would be no armies left. This would come off the board, and any buildings that are remaining come off the board. They essentially torch the region,
burn it down,
burn it to the ground, and that is that. And the other bad part is I no longer have any armies here. What does that mean? The Saruga card is no longer mine. It goes back into the supply, and it's now a neutral region. Okay? However, that is not what happened. There was 1 army left over, and there was a revolt token. Well, that didn't exactly calm everybody there in the region. So what happens? After I have taxed or confiscated rice a second time, and we fought, another revolt token gets added. So now if I do it again, now 2 farmers go out there because there are 2 revolt tokens out there. And rinse and repeat as many times as there are revolt tokens. So you're going to fight once, but you're going to get that many farmer cubes. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right. There's a little bit more detail on the battles, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. Getting back to this, so that is rice and confiscate rice and taxing. These 3 up here correspond to building the 3 different types of buildings. Again, if you put a region down here, and Saruga is just the place to be apparently for this example, if I place Saruga up here and I have the 3 money, I must build a castle in that location. I told you there are 3 icons here. The bottom icon says that there are 2 building locations available on the board. Okay? And what that means is there can be 2 of these various buildings in Saruga at max, and they must be different types of buildings. So if I have built a castle already in Saruga and I place this here, I am not allowed to place it there, ergo I cannot take that action. And then so building a castle, building a temple, building a theater in that region. And that's as simple as building a castle. You put a little castle chit on one of the 2 building locations on the board, and those will stay unless there is a tie between the warring factions, and then everything gets burned to the ground. All right. That covers those 5 actions. These 2, very simple. Pay 3 money, put on 5 armies in that location. So if we use Suruga again, I would pay 3 money. I would get 5 armies out of my supply and place them out there. However, if I had this card here, instead of placing 5, I would actually place 6 armies. Simple enough. This one says pay 2 money, place 3 armies on that location. Pay 1 money, add 1 army to that location, and then you may move from one location to an adjacent location. So again, if Suruga is the location out here, and let's say I have something like so, there, all right. So let's say Suruga being here, and I place the 1 extra army, paying the $1, or the 1 war chest, I may move to 1 adjacent location. However, I am not allowed to battle. Battling means neutral regions or something owned by opponents, their regions. So these 3 are not available. So if I move, I may move from here up to Kai. The only places that I can move are from Suruga up to Kai. That's my only option. How many may I move? You must leave a minimum of 1 cube in a location, so I could move 1 if I wish, or I could move 2, and boom, that would be the end of that action. Any questions on that?
Nope.
The important thing to remember is you cannot battle during this action here. You cannot battle. Why? Well, now it brings us to A and B. You'll notice the crossed swords saying you can battle. Well, yes and no. You can, but you don't have to. These say you must move, and then you may battle, depending on if it's a neutral or enemy-controlled region. So getting back to the example from earlier, if I chose to move, I could, again, move from here up to there, and there's no battling because it's my own faction. Easy enough. However, if I choose to move, I could come 2 down here into Izu or into against my opponents. So let's go ahead and talk about battling in a neutral region. Neutral region gets 1 farmer. So everything that came in and the farmer would go in and nothing came out. So that means my battle failed.
No survivors.
Right there. So in this case, it failed. So I don't get the province. Had one of my cubes come out, though, in that case, I then take over the province, which means I would go into the neutral deck and I would find the Izu card, and I would then get the Izu card into my hand to be able to use for future rounds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That was really funny, by the way. Then, let's say I had come over here into Totomi, and I'm battling against blue. So Jess and I, get it on! So what happens here? There are no farmers. There will never be farmer cubes out here on the board. In that case, all of the attackers and all of the defenders would then go into the cube, and whatever came out comes out. And thank you, Farmer Cube, for the example. So notice there are no revolt tokens where we're battling. In that case, the farmers fight on the side of the defending army. Okay, so in this case, it would be 2 versus 2, meaning everyone dies. However, if it had been something like this, in this case, it is now 3-2, the invaders lose. So these 2 would come back into my supply. The farmers usually get sacrificed first, so those, again, it's a 1-to-1, so those 4 would come off. The surviving member stays there, and thus the end of the battle. However, if it were how it was originally like this, in that case, everyone dies. Everyone comes off. If there were any buildings on the board, those come off. Any revolt markers, which obviously there wouldn't be because the farmers were on Jess's side, come off. And Jess would also lose the Totomi card back to the neutral, back to the supply. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. But let's say instead of doing that, because for whatever reason, maybe there's a temple out here, and I have a few yellow on my turn, I say, you know what, I'm going to come in here and get it on with Greg. And there happens to be a Revolt token in there. In that case, we're going to throw these in. And let's say that came out as well. Okay? So in this case, because there is a Revolt token, the farmers are really pissed off. Well, they say, you know what? We're going to just watch how it plays out. They are going to be a neutral force in this case. If there is a Revolt token, farmers are neutral. So farmers will only fight, or they only have two sides. They have the side of the defending player if there is no Revolt token, or they are neutral if there is one or more Revolt token. They will never, ever, ever fight on the side of the invaders. That's an important point that took us a little while to wrap our heads around. So again, in this case, it is 3-3. Those come off the board. The Revolt token goes away, but so does the Temple, because we tied and there's nobody. And again, the Sagami card would come out of Greg's hand and go back into the supply. Easy enough. Okay? That's for A and B. So we're going to do this 3 seasons. Then we're going to get into winter. Winter, real briefly, is the scoring round. So what's going to happen? You're going to count how many province cards that you have in your hand. Let's say I have 10 or less, then I'm good to go. I have fed everybody in rice. No harm, no foul. But let's say I have 11 provinces and I only have 10 rice. Well, there's one province that's going to revolt. If you can point at that chart at the very top, that says I am short however many provinces. If I am short 1 province of rice, then we look to the second column. The second column says that's how many provinces are going to revolt. So the player to my left then, so in this case I'm going to shuffle up all my province cards. Jess is going to choose one there, and that is Omi, so assuming that I had some forces obviously in Omi. In that case, there is going to be 1 farmer as per that chart, plus any revolt token. So if there was a revolt token there, it would actually be a second farmer. We then would throw him into the cube, and obviously anything that's remaining in here. Well, there were 2 that came out there, so I get to survive and hold on to my province. Every player will do that in turn order. Then after that happens, then we're going to go into scoring, which is you get 1 point for every province you own. How many do you own? We just counted. I own 11, and provided I didn't lose any to revolts, I would get 11 points in that case. Then, for every building that is out here in all of my provinces, so in this case, I have 2 buildings, I would score 2 points. Then it goes down to within a region, the most castles, the most temples, the most theaters. 3, 2, and 1 point respectively. If tied, the tied players subtract 1 from that number and get that point. So it'd be 2 points, 1 point, or no points. Whoever has the most points wins after the second winter. And that, folks, is how you play Shogun. Any questions locally?